always try to teach them good thinking practices, because it's a good opportunity. You have their attention and you can teach them to think through problems. You can help them with problem solving. And you can also give them history. I have a family story I tell about a doll that my great aunt had. And so it lets people understand that my aunt lived to be 116, but she was 9 years old when the Emancipation Proclamation was signed. So she lived as an enslaved child. And the stories she told were just so enthralling about her life as a kid. I was 10 and she was telling me about what it was like to be almost my age as an enslaved child. And so I shared that story. I even made the doll because it just gives me a prop to work with. And she's so cute. But so a lot of stories are a good way to pass on not only tradition, but behaviors that you want to see, and to allow children to experience behaviors vicariously that you don't want to see. You can tell a story about this fairy who makes bad choices, like the fairy who men never see, never see, never see. And you see, and the children learn what the results of those bad choices were without having to make bad choices. So I like to be able to do that. My name is Dawn Blackman, and I'm a storyteller. I was always that fourth grader that had a bunch of kindergartners following me around. And I helped tutor reading. And so the nuns would ask me sometimes to keep the younger brothers and sisters busy while they had parent-teacher conference, if parents brought them. And we have storytellers in our family. Every generation has a storyteller in our family. And my great aunt Ellen, who lived to be 116 years old, lived with us for a while when she was in her 90s. And she was basically our family storyteller for her generation. And she shared family stories with me. And I just felt like I wanted to keep telling them. You know, I wanted people to know about our history. And so the first time I was actually paid to tell stories, I was 10. And then when I thought, wow, people will give you money for telling stories? Who knew? So then I kind of developed different stories and began to, you know, I think I had some cards printed, flyers, little flyers printed that said storytelling, $10. It's more than that now. Okay. Which nowadays, there are storytellers who keep their family's history, and in some cultures they're called master storytellers because they have the stories of everything about the family, where different ones were buried, who was taken away, who passed, how they passed. And then there are storytellers who are griots, or just basically entertainment. And I'm kind of doing both. My dad was a storyteller. My sister, Joyce, was the official storyteller by the time we younger children came along. And when she turned 16, she had a date, and she couldn't tell us a story that particular night. So we asked our dad, and he was watching the ball game. Well, I waited until the Ham's beer commercial came on and that bear was dancing from the land of sky blue water. Most people don't remember that animal or that commercial. But I asked him if he knew any stories, because I knew if I asked him if he knew any, he'd feel compelled to tell us and outshow Joyce. And he said he would come on the 7th inning stretch. And then he told us a story that I usually wind up my storytelling with if I have a couple of minutes extra. And so he came, you know, we were all ready for bed, and we said, "Dad, we're ready." And he said, I didn't hear anybody washing. Did you wash your face? Did you brush your teeth? So we all ran in there and we brushed our teeth, we washed our faces, we went back and we got in our triple-decker bunk beds. We said, Dad, we're ready. And he said, not until the 7th inning stretch. Well, my younger brothers and sisters are younger than I, but not much. 14 years between me and the twins, and then there's 3 others under them, 2 others under them. So, and we had older siblings. So I couldn't boss them around. They would tell me in a minute, you're not the boss of me. But whenever they wanted somebody to interrupt Dad, they'd ask me, you're the oldest, you go ask. I'm like, yeah. So I went and I said, Dad, the little kids, because if they were going to send me out, I was going to call them the little kids. I said, they want to know what the story's about, and then they'll wait more patiently. And he said, oh, the story's going to be about 3 holes in the ground. And I said, okay. So I went back, I said, Dad said the story's going to be about 3 holes in the ground. So everybody started to speculate. 3 holes in the ground. Dad's going to tell a ghost story. It's 3 graves. I said, Daddy wouldn't tell us a ghost story before bed. Well, what do you think it's going to be, Smarty Pants? I said, it's 3 holes in the ground? I'll bet it's buried treasure. It's a pirate story. Dad's going to tell us a pirate story. So my brother and sister, twins, get up and they start dancing around. 15 men on a dead man's chest. And our dad said, all right back there. So he got, we're ready. Finally, he came. He said, okay, there's a rule, because the 7th inning stretch is only so long. No, Dad, I need a drink of water. No, Daddy, the book of man's under the bed. No monster in the closet. When I finish this story, you're done. You get in bed and you go to sleep. Does everybody agree? And we agreed. And he told this story. A long time ago, in a land far, far away, when the earth was newly flung, and the moon was newly round, when dragons roamed and witches ruled, there were 3 holes in the ground. Well, 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 go to sleep. And he left. And we were like, so now when I tell it in the schools, when I'm out in outlying areas, the kids get it. But when I told it at Stratton, I had to tell them a well is a hole in the ground. Kenwood, those kids don't know about wells. Okay, a well is a hole in the ground. Well, 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 3 holes in the ground. Kids today don't know a well from a hole in the ground. So. On Mondays, I tell stories in the garden. It can happen any day, but that's the scheduled day for stories in the garden. It's Mondays at 11 o'clock. And, but anytime I have a group in, I wind up telling stories. I tell stories about the garden. I mean, the things that are here came to be here. I mean, sometimes I get a whole story out of those trees and bushes over there. Just one day, the first year I was steward, I came in and somebody had dropped them over the fence. And I was like, look at this, trees and bushes, because it was just very flat over there. So I called the school district who owns the property and asked where I could plant them. And they said, the facilities guy said, somewhere near that fence. I'm like, okay. And so we did. You know, the child that dug the deepest hole got to plant the biggest tree. You know, and now they're so big. They were just little bitty things in little pots when we got them. Especially the sweetberry tree. It didn't even really look like a tree. You know, if it hadn't been in a pot, it would have probably gotten mold. It was that small. So to have it bearing is really neat. Some of the old songs. It has to be something that people are interested in. And you never know what people are going to be interested in. I do, and I tell a lot of animal stories. You know, children particularly like animal stories, and I try to involve the audience when I tell. You know, I have helpers. So an alligator might take somebody's shoes or mess up their hair, you know. And in each story, I try to have a kernel in there that is new information that's true. Like, why no one will carry an alligator down to the river? When you carry an alligator, you have to carry him upside down on your head. Seriously, otherwise they just bend over and bite you in the face. You know, so You tie them tie their tail to their neck and put them upside down on your head. So if anybody ever has to carry an alligator, they'll know how to do it. So I tell stories for brides. Like one thing is bridal parties. I'll tell stories about different customs in different parts of the world. I'll tell, if we're having a bachelorette party, I'll tell ribald stories. There are opportunities in the garden for volunteers, for artists who want to display and create projects. Our sign in the fence, it says, "What's growing on?" That's the very first year I was here in the garden as steward. A group of artists from the U of I came and they put that in the fence for us. So we wanted to, now it needs to be replaced. So what's growing on? Food, fun, and friendship. So we ain't got room for that. So there's all kinds of opportunities. If people just want to come out and hang out and put a little something in the ground, if they want to come to one of our events, if they want to host an event. It's a great place to host an event too. So there are a lot of options and we're open to different ways of using the garden. I sew, I make dolls, I make jewelry. I'm planning a sculpture for the garden. I really want to weld because I want to take all of our broken tools and make a tool man for the garden. But I have also planned an honor wall, which is to be a cinder block wall that kind of reaches into the garden. And each cinder block has space for a tile that can be decorated by a community member to honor someone in their family or somebody in the community. So it'll be the praise and honor garden within the garden. And so I lined up all my ducks. Now all I have to do is get cinder blocks and somebody who knows how to lay cinder blocks, because that's not one of those things I know. I don't know how to do that footer thing, you know. So we're going to need somebody to professionally put down the footer so we don't look up and have a crooked honor wall. But I think that the garden is a place where people can come and relax, meet people, enjoy one another, and also be a place to put reminders. Just like we have a tree to remind us of Kiwan, we could have people's names on the honor wall. Because some people never get Woman of Distinction Award. They don't have the curriculum vitae to do that, but they do a lot of things. The lady that comes every Wednesday for years and years to Douglas Library and helps kids with their homework, she deserves to be honored.
To get involved and support the Urbana Public Arts program, please contact the Public Arts Coordinator Rachel Storm at rlstorm@urbanaillinois.us or 217-328-8265.